How's it going there, my friends? This is Passion for Truth coming at you in another video. So you asked me why I deny the science. Why do flat earthers deny the quote-unquote science? Why are we trying to steer people away from science? This is kind of like part 2 to my last video, although I'll probably title it something else because we're going to go into some other things here. So it's probably going to be a little bit lengthy. But I want to tackle this question, why I deny the science, and why many other people like myself are denying the quote-unquote science. Well, let's talk about that science. What science are you actually referring to? Are you referring to the science that tells us that we evolved from stardust or apes or pond scum over the course of billions and billions of years? Are you referring to the science that has completely sold us on the Big Bang Theory? That was created, by the way, by a Catholic priest. You might not know that, but that's more proof that this is a religious cult. We're going to kind of dive into some of that. So, Big Bang Theory. The process of billions and billions of years. You see, without the billions of years, there's no way to justify any of this nonsense, any of this Big Bang heliocentric nonsense. You have to have the billions of years for people to even slightly fathom it. Let alone there is no proof or evidence that supports the notion whatsoever. Let's think about this for a second. If you believe that we evolved from pond scum and that we were once maybe sea-going creatures, we had gills, or we had fins, maybe we had exoskeletons at one point, and so for billions of years we were swimming in the oceans. And then after a while, after billions of more years pass by, we slowly start to evolve into endoskeletons. We lose our gills, our fins, and instead we start to grow lungs, apertures. We start to grow arms and legs. We start to grow, not to mention the fact that we won't even get into like how the mind of a human being is so complex. How about the eyeball, for instance? Just the eye alone, our vision, our optics. Have you ever looked into how miraculous that is? How complex just our eyes are, let alone our ability to think rationally and critically. We're the only species that can do so. We're the only species that can rationalize things and literally make decisions for ourselves. All right? Now, you'll argue with that and say, of course, other animals can make decisions, but can they grow and prosper the way that we have? Can they create the things that we have created technology-wise? Absolutely not. There's absolutely no proof of this macro evolution that had to take place that replaced the creator, right? And ultimately, that's what this is all about. That's what the science of today is trying to do to us. It's trying to steer us away from our creator, our God-given abilities to manifest things that we want to manifest. It's taken us away from our power, who we are. It's taken purpose away from ourselves. And a lot of you will argue, well, I believe we live on a ball, and I still believe I have a purpose, and I still believe in God, and that's probably true. But how much more? How much more would you want for yourself? Think about that. Think about how much more purpose that you might have if you knew 100% that you were created. You didn't have to question it. You knew that you were not trillions and trillions of light years away from your creator, but right below him. He literally looks down on us. He's right above us. And he created this place, this level, horizontal plane that we live on, this realm, if you want to call it that, was created specifically for you. You're not insignificant. You're not on a spinning ball, spinning 1,000 miles an hour, traveling millions of miles an hour through an infinite universe insignificantly, right? And I've gone through this before. But you are asking me to trust that science. You're asking me to trust a science that has zero evidence. Now, where we might agree is, what is the scientific method? Let's define terms. I don't think we would disagree. I don't think anybody would disagree on what the scientific method is. At least I hope not. But the question really is, there's two types of people in this world, in my opinion. Those who trust the science and those who question it. And those who go on to actually make a difference. You see, there's a set of people that just go on blindly, as NPCs, as we like to call them, zombies, sheep, right? Those are the people who just go along to get along. And then there are others who question it and change the quote-unquote science. Science is always changing. But our school textbooks, when we're going through grade school, through the indoctrination camp, say otherwise. They try to sell us that it's a fact that we live on a spinning ball. It's a fact, almost like 2 + 2 = 4. If you believe otherwise, then you're a complete numpty. You're insane. You don't know how to think rationally, or you don't know enough about physics. A lot of people like to say that. So are you asking me to trust that science? Are you asking me to trust the science that brought us frauds like Lucy, the half man, half ape sculpted piece of fraudery that was proven to be a fraud? What about Piltdown Man? I guess a jawbone and some teeth were found, and they tried to say that it was from a prehistoric human being that came hundreds of thousands of years before us. And that turned out to be a complete fraud. Matter of fact, if you go to Wikipedia, it says that it was a fraud and admitted to be a fraud and found out to be a fraud later. Are you asking me to trust that science? No thanks. I don't want to trust that science. Are you asking me to trust the science, for instance, of today? The science that has completely brainwashed people and indoctrinated people to believe that breathing air, literally breathing air, is bad for you. They've completely sold us on the fact that we should wear masks over our face to keep us from getting sick. When the science, the real science, not the pseudoscience, and the empirical data has shown that it does not help us. As a matter of fact, it depreciates our immune system. Think about it rationally. If your body excretes waste in one of two places, your mouth and your ass. So think about it. If you're wearing a mask all day, you're literally breathing in your own bacteria, your own waste, and that's how you get bacterial pneumonia. That's how you get sick. You're literally destroying your immune system, your God-given immune system. But they've convinced you that that's the way to go for health. They won't tell you that, maybe you should eat properly, eat more fruits and vegetables, eat less red meat, get away from candy and sugar, high fructose corn syrup, terrible foods like cereals and all this garbage. They won't tell you how to actually take control and strengthen your immune system. Instead, what they'll do is they'll say, hey, we've got a remedy that we'd like to sell you. We got some snake oil we'd like to sell you that'll help you with your immune system, when all it's really doing is destroying it. You see, we've been brainwashed to believe that we need 70 friggin' juice jabs before the age of 5. If you think about it, they're a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Some people if you give them a peanut, a freaking peanut, for crying out loud, can swallow it and die, or even suffocate themselves. My girlfriend's allergic to peanuts. I know firsthand how that looks. So, one size fits all. Who are these things safe and effective for? The science of today tells us that these things are safe and effective. But safe and effective for who? Have you ever asked that question? Not to mention that the data, the real actual scientific data, will tell you and show you that these are more harmful than good. Just go to openvaers.com. That's openvaers.com and look at the numbers for the COVID jab. And tell me what you see there. And then think about this. Only 1%, probably at best, 5% at best, and that's reaching, or even reported on VAERS. A lot of doctors don't even know about VAERS. Nurses don't know about it. Number one. Number two, it's a complete nuisance for those who do know about it to report it because it takes a lot of time. Number two. And number three, if they do, they're going against the establishment. The establishment doesn't want us to know that these things are harmful. They want to sell us these things. It's the whole order out of chaos thing. They create the problem and then they create the solution to the problem. In other words, they create the snake oil to sell you for the problem that they created in the first place. Is this making sense? But you're asking me to trust that science. You're asking me to trust the science of gravity, when gravity is just a theory, and a terrible, insane theory at that. If you think about it rationally, you actually start to try to process these things and question them, you'll find out that they're a complete farce. That the whole theory is complete bullshit, but it's needed for a heliocentric model. If you don't have it, you can't make sense of it because it literally is the god of the gaps for the heliocentric model. It's the little g, right? It's that, or big G, however you want to look at it, that holds this whole model together. It repels when it needs to and it attracts when it needs to. Somehow it magically attracts trillions of tons of water, ocean water, to a spinning ball. It holds ginormous ships to the water. It literally holds continents to the spinning ball. Australia's upside down in relation to where we're at here in America, if you believe in the spinning ball. But gravity does that. But guess what? I mean, gravity also, it's strong enough to do all that, but it's also delicate enough to let a butterfly fly, or a dandelion float in the sky, or helium, or any type of gas for that matter. All that stuff goes up. You see, when you really start to question these things, it doesn't make any sense. The science that you're trusting in makes no sense. So why are you trusting in it? Why would I trust in it? Furthermore, when you think in terms of gravity, the moon, it's a smaller object. It's a smaller, according to them, it's much, much smaller than the Earth. Why wouldn't it be attracted to us since we are the bigger body? Why wouldn't we be attracted to the sun since the sun is a bigger body than the Earth? You ever think about these things? And there's so much more we can get into. There's way better explanations, real scientific explanations as to why things take a downward force, why things fall and why certain things rise. It can all be explained by electrostatics, or what is it? Dielectric acceleration. You see, we can measure the potential, the electrostatic potential of any material and the atmosphere. For instance, the ground has less electrostatic potential, or less dielectric potential, however you want to look at it, than the further you go up in the atmosphere. So we can measure that electrostatic potential, and the higher that we measure, the higher that number goes. And every material, everything has an electrostatic potential. And based on that electrostatic potential is where you fall in place in this realm. Helium has a less electrostatic potential than air, so therefore it rises, right? So, I mean, there's way better explanations, and there's way better videos that I can lead you to explain this to you a whole lot better than I can. But it's all based on electromagnetism and electrostatics. That's a much better explanation. And then density and buoyancy settle everything else out. Why certain gases are at certain heights, and why we as humans are settled down here at the bottom. Is this all starting to make sense? You don't need magical gravity, but the heliocentric model needs it. But that's the science you're wanting me to trust, even though there's no proof of it. It's just a theory. Let's get into rockets. You want me to trust this science, but let's break it down. I've actually broken it down on other videos, but I actually like talking about this because it's just common sense when you think about it. And you can try to argue with it all you want. You don't have an argument. You're not going to have a rebuttal for this. You can shoot some jive up my ass and come up with some bullshit, but you don't have a rebuttal against what I'm about to tell you here. Because I hear this all the time, Brian, you just don't know enough about physics. You don't know enough about orbital mechanics. All the time I hear this. So let's break it down. Because I remember, first of all, have you ever been to a rocket launch? Or have you ever just watched one and actually studied what you're watching? I remember going as a kid to a rocket launch, a couple rocket launches in Cape Canaveral when I was a kid. And I remember the sound. I remember the feeling. The earth was literally shaking under my feet. The sound was ridiculously loud. So yes, they are launching shuttles into the sky. Nobody here doubts that or questions that. But what are they actually doing? Are they pulling some wool over your eyes? Well, let's think about it. Number one, look at how and observe how slow a NASA rocket launch or a SpaceX rocket launch is. They are ridiculously slow. Painfully slow. I remember questioning that as a kid. I remember asking to myself, I don't know if I ever asked it out loud, but I asked it to myself, why are these things so slow? It doesn't make any sense. Aren't they supposed to be shooting up real fast into space and getting into orbit? You see, kids, the unindoctrinated mind will ask questions like that, but the indoctrinated mind will say something along the lines of, oh, well, what they're doing is they're going to accelerate and they're going to go, and when they start to go horizontal, that's when they're going to pick up and gain momentum to shoot themselves, to launch themselves into orbital, into space, right? So in other words, they're going to travel along with the rotation of the earth. This is what the indoctrinated mind will say. And they're just gaining up speed so they can launch themselves with the rotation of the earth and get into space. But let's think about how fast these rockets have to go. Because if you go to nasa.gov and you look up how fast does a rocket have to go to reach orbital velocity, it's going to tell you about 25,000 miles an hour. And already you should be asking some serious questions here. Because this is absolute insanity. Think about it in terms of this. A speeding bullet is 1,500 to 1,700 miles an hour. And there's no way you can see a speeding bullet unless you play it back in slow-mo. It's the only way you're going to see a speeding bullet. That's only 1,500 miles an hour. We're talking about 25,000 miles an hour. So like 20 times faster than a speeding bullet, for crying out loud. Number one. Number two. Aerodynamics. The SR-71A Blackbird is supposed to be the fastest jet that we know of. Top speed is 2,100 miles an hour plus. They say at that speed, an SR-71 starts to literally deteriorate, starts to break down. Paint starts to fly off of it. It literally starts to break down. And if you look at the aerodynamics of an SR-71 from any angle, it looks like a damn razor blade. It looks like it could literally cut through anything it wanted to cut through. It's that sharp, that aerodynamic. Yet its top speed is 21. Now I know what you're going to say. You're going to say there's a difference between jet propulsion and rocket propulsion, and I would definitely agree with you. But let's keep going because it gets crazier. So look at the aerodynamics of a rocket. A rocket looks like a damn blimp because it is. That's a different story. That's another video. I've already done videos on that. And so have many other flat earthers. There's a reason why they launch so damn slow. Because they're trying to lift a damn blimp. And that's how aerodynamic these things are. Look at it. It's bulky as hell. It's ginormous. And you expect it to be aerodynamic. So, and furthermore, try to do this. Do a side-by-side comparison. Amateur rocket launch versus a NASA rocket launch or a SpaceX rocket launch. The amateur rocket is going to travel way faster, probably like more than 10 times faster than a damn NASA rocket. And it's still never going to reach speeds of 25,000 miles an hour. That is absolutely ludicrous to think so. It would literally deteriorate and explode trying to go that fast. But we're to believe that rockets do. And furthermore, look at the height. Let's think about this rationally. When you're watching a rocket launch, right, a NASA rocket launch, look at the height. If you can still see the rocket with your naked eye, do you think it's high enough to reach space? Honestly. Let's think of it in terms of, let's think of it side by side, another side by side comparison. Commercial airliner, they typically fly about 30,000 feet. At 30,000 feet, a plane looks about that small, right? If you doubled that and say 60,000, do you think you would still see that airliner? Possibly. I don't think so, though. But let's triple it, 90,000 feet. Do you think you would see it then? Not a chance. You're not seeing a commercial airliner at 90,000 feet. You're not seeing it. All right? Now, I know a rocket's a little bit bigger, but you're still not going to see a rocket at 90,000 feet. Okay? You're just not going to do it. That's science. It's too far away at that point. And furthermore, when you're watching that rocket launch and it starts to go horizontal, in your view, you can still see it as it starts to go horizontal, then it starts to take a parabolic dive. Now, common sense will tell you that, if you just flew a jet right alongside that damn rocket, it could also go to space because it's not going any higher. It's not going any higher. So technically that damn, that jet can go into space too, as long as it just reaches 25,000 miles an hour and gets into orbit. Is this starting to make any sense, or do you think that I'm completely insane? You see, I really don't care what you think. No one ever has a rebuttal to this because you know what I'm saying makes sense. And what they're telling you doesn't make sense. Not to mention we can go into NASA, to the ISS footage, to spacewalks, and we can literally just destroy them. We find astronauts on wires and harnesses. We find green screen glitches because they're using green screen technology, and that's a fact. They're using augmented reality. 1 minute there won't be anything on the screen on the ISS, and then all of a sudden something will just beam in. There'll be an object that just beams in because they're using augmented reality. They have bubbles coming out of their helmets. So are they scuba divers? I don't know. There's also videos out there of moths like flying around on the ISS. How did the moths get up there? Those pesky little snitches. How in the world did moths get on the ISS? Now, you might be gullible enough to believe that maybe they traveled along with the astronauts from the time they launched to joining up with the ISS, but that would be complete idiocracy. That's just idiocracy. How did the moth get up there? How does it survive up there? Why would it be up there? You know, you don't believe me? I can show you the video evidence. We can prove over and over. This is my point, and I'm gonna wrap it up here. My point is, we can prove the fraudulery, the fraudulent things that these corporations are doing, these government-funded corporations are doing. We can absolutely destroy them, and have been. Proving that what they're telling us is a lie. Proving that their science is not science, it's pseudoscience. It's an illusion. It's a magic illusion. And what they're trying to do is ultimately, like I said in the very beginning of the video, they're trying to pull you away from your Creator. They're putting you in a prism. They put you in a spinning ball. In other words, they put a fence around you, and they said, there's nowhere left to explore. They've literally wrapped your mind and put it in a ball, in a prison, to where you can't think for yourself. You no longer have control of your mind. They have control of your mind. And it's sad that you don't even question it. It's sad that they have done such a good job that you just go along to get along. That most of us, whenever they told us we needed to go inside and we had curfew, we did it. We literally obeyed the pseudoscience in the direction of this agenda. And it is an agenda. The agenda is to not just control your mind. That's the biggest part of it. But it's also to establish a one world order, a one world religion that you will have to obey. You're going to have to obey it. It's already taken place in China. In China, for instance, then it's already in place in a lot of places, in a lot of stores. You're not even using currency to purchase things anymore. You literally go pick up your products in the store. You walk up to the cashier and they have facial recognition. And you pay for your goods through facial recognition. And it's all based off of a credit score. And that credit score is not just about your finances and how well you take care of your finances and your credit. It's about how well you go along with the system. It's about how good of a sheep you are. It's about how good you follow the authorities. The better that you follow the authorities, the better the credit you have, the more stuff that you can buy. Do you like that system? Is that freedom to you? That's not freedom to me. And that's why I don't trust the science. And that's why I think you're the crazy one that just blindly accepts these things and trusts the science that you've been given, the reality that you've been given. But Brian, you're saying all this. What do you believe? What do you trust? Number one, I trust my God-given senses. I trust my Heavenly Father. And I trust what I can observe for myself. If I can't observe it for myself, if it's out of my observations, out of my ability to actually see with my eyes and test and repeat, then I don't just want to blindly accept it. For instance, here's what I trust. I trust that when I go out there and I observe and I try to find curvature and I don't find it, and we're supposed to live on a ball that's 25,000 miles in circumference, and there's math that goes along with that. If you believe that you live on a ball that's 25,000 miles in circumference, then you also have to believe that it curves at a certain rate. And there's a mathematical equation that you can go out there and you can use and you can test to see if the earth in fact does curve at such a rate. And here's what you're going to find out. You're going to find out that there is no curvature. You're going to find out that you live on a motionless, level horizontal plane. You're going to find out that NASA and all these other government-funded entities They're fooling you with fisheye lenses and magic tricks. That's what you're going to find out. You're going to find out that there are no real photos of Earth from space. They are photoshopped because they have to be. Following me? So that's what I trust. I don't trust the powers that ought not be. For we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We wrestle against powers and principalities. We wrestle against the rulers of the darkness. This is a spiritual war between good and evil. And now's a good time to be on the right side of history. What side are you on? Or you could just sit on the fence. And that's not me. See, the way my personality is set up is I have to pick a side. And I pick the good side. I pick to follow my Creator and what He has put on my heart. And see, I'm a very direct person. Certain people aren't going to like the way that I come across, while others will. Others will relate to it. Some people need to be slapped around a little bit, slapped into reality. And I'm that guy. I'm just that direct. I don't know how to sugarcoat things. That's not me. So I may offend a lot of people, but I'm also going to relate to some people. And you may think I'm crazy. That's fine. You're more than welcome to your opinion. See, I'm a big believer of freedom too. You're welcome to state what you believe. You're welcome to comment and call me crazy in the comments. I'm not going to block you. I'm not going to be mad at you. I might ignore you. But everyone has a right to believe what they want to believe. That's what true freedom is. So this video is over 30 minutes long. I hope that I did some justice here. And here's my goal. My goal is never to try to convince you of anything. My goal for my videos and my channel is just to get you to think. To think for yourself, number one. To question things, number two. And then to go out there and research things. Okay? And once you're done researching, then go out and live your life accordingly. Build communities. Build your family up. Multiply. Grow some crops. Eat your own food. Get off the grid as much as possible. And I know I need to practice what I preach on that. That's my goal. Because if you just blindly believe anything that I'm telling you, it's just like blindly believing your authorities. And that's not any better. That's not what I want at all. I just want you to start thinking critically. With that, this is Passion for Truth. Until the next video, take care. God bless. I love you. Peace.